Using a baler to
Oh,
compact old vehicles
oh,
converts them into smaller,
wow,
dense
that's
blocks. This
interesting.
process not only streamlines transportation, but
Okay.
also optimizes storage efficiency. The operating principle of a baler is straightforward. When a scrap car
What
is
is
fed into
that?
the machine, the pressure head begins to press down,
Oh, the
steadily
car
compacting the
is
scrap
turned
metal until it
into
forms a
junk?
tightly compressed block. The pressure head can be adjusted to accommodate different types of scrap metal, ensuring
Oh,
effective
wow.
compression. Balers can process various kinds of scrap metal, such as old car parts,
Okay.
aluminum cans, and
Mm-hmm.
construction materials. By
Mm-hmm.
compressing scrap metal with a baler, bulky
Mm-hmm.
and space-consuming materials are significantly reduced in volume,
Oh,
minimizing
wow.
the space and costs required for storage and transportation.
Okay.
In England, workers are installing thatched roofs, a
What is
distinctive
that?
feature of the area. Before laying the thatch, they first cover the roof with a waterproof membrane and
What is
secure
that?
it with wooden battens. The thatch is then placed on top of this layer. Thatching materials typically include dried reeds or wheat straw. The thatch layer is usually about 12 inches thick and is attached directly to the wooden roof frame with steel nails and wooden pegs. Once laid, the workers trim it into shape with scissors and
Wow.
pat the surface to keep it neat and even. To protect against strong winds, a mesh is added over the thatch to hold it in place. These roofs are excellent insulators, keeping homes warm in the winter and cool in the summer, and they also provide great soundproofing. Many
Okay.
thatched roofs last for decades, and even if moss
Decades?
starts to grow, it can be removed to extend the roof's lifespan.
Okay. I didn't know that.
I've never seen such an impressive man. When a young man visited his girlfriend's parents for the first time, his
Okay.
future mother-in-law mentioned she liked keeping fish. In
Hmm.
response, the guy did something unusual. He filled the
Like
umbrella
what?
his girlfriend had given him with concrete. First, he made a circular frame inside the umbrella with steel bars, fixed
No, no,
smaller
no,
rings
no.
to the support pole, and tied them securely. He cut wire mesh to fit the structure, placed it inside, and tied it with iron wire, bending the edges inward for a seamless look. He applied concrete mortar onto the mesh, creating a solid structure, then added another layer for stability. He placed a tube over the pipe to channel water upwards, added flower pot for support. Using the same method, he made another concrete umbrella for the top. He continued to stack the concrete umbrella structures from large to small, and finished with a pipe and concrete mortar. He then assembled a wooden frame around the umbrella, added greenery and goldfish to the water, creating
Okay.
a beautiful ornamental fish
Oh, wow.
pond.
That looks
Here's
nice.
a crew cleaning barnacles off a ship. It's oddly satisfying
Ooh.
to watch, isn't it? Normally,
Ooh.
barnacles are found on slower moving animals like whales or sea turtles.
Okay.
Considering how fast ships travel, which is much quicker than most marine life, it's surprising they get barnacles at all. But ships do stop and slow down at times, and that's when barnacles seize the chance to attach. Over time, they attract other organisms like algae and diatoms,
Okay.
forming a little ecosystem on the ship. The longer this goes on, the heavier the ship becomes, which increases drag. This not only slows the ship down, but also causes it to burn more fuel. That's
Okay.
why ships need to be cleaned regularly. This young man is truly a genius. On a
Okay.
moonlit night, he skillfully spread concrete, reinforcing it with steel bars for strength. He even used banana leaves as a base, adding
Oh, wow.
steel to fortify the structure. Then, he sneakily filled his wife's shoes
Oh,
with
what's that?
concrete. Do you think he'll get in trouble if she finds
Oh
out?
my
Next,
God.
he sculpted a swan's head and neck using the reinforced concrete.
Crazy.
After it dried, he refined the shape, ensuring the neck was long and graceful. To create the swan's body, he laid down fiber paper, framed it with bricks, and poured in concrete with a steel skeleton for durability. After smoothing it, he flipped and cleaned the concrete panels. He then placed the swan's head at the front of the frame
Oh,
and
wow.
attached the panels, forming the swan's body. To build a pool around the swan, he
Wow.
stacked bricks, added a drainage pipe, and coated the
That's a
walls
good
and
idea.
floor with
Somebody should
concrete
try it
for
home.
waterproofing and smoothness. He also painted the swan white and the pond blue, adding
Okay.
pebbles and water to complete the scene. He even placed ducks in the larger pond. What do
Oh,
you
wow.
think about this unique pond?
It looks
What you
nice.
see in the video might seem like an accident, but it's
Okay.
actually a construction technique called caisson sinking. This
Construction?
method involves
Doesn't look
constructing
like
a structure
construction.
on the ground and then gradually sinking it into the earth to a specific depth, where it becomes an underground structure. The process starts by creating a cylindrical structure, usually
Okay.
made of reinforced concrete, on the surface to serve as the retaining wall for the excavation. Within this protective wall, workers or machinery remove the soil inside the caisson. As the soil is excavated, the structure sinks under its own weight. Once it reaches the required depth, the bottom is sealed with concrete, and the caisson is filled and reinforced, ultimately serving as the foundation for bridge piers or other structural elements.
That looks.
This is probably the most cost-effective method to repair collapsed concrete floors, mainly
Okay.
because it saves on labor costs. It's incredibly easy to lift the concrete, and the operation itself is quite simple. First,
Okay.
you drill a hole in the collapsed area of the concrete. Then, you inject some polyurethane foam filler, also known as
Alright.
expanding foam. The principle behind it is pretty straightforward. When the filler meets air, it expands rapidly and reacts with the moisture in the air to solidify into foam. You can see from the
Alright.
footage how even such heavy concrete slabs can be lifted by the foam. Although its durability isn't the best, it's hard to beat the low cost. Aside from repairs, many people also use expanding foam for insulation and soundproofing in houses.
Okay.
The worker is bending steel bars.
Oh.
Under the powerful force of the bending machine, a bundle of steel bars is quickly shaped as desired. Similarly, when this metal sheet is pressed through a roller bending machine, it will naturally start to curl up, eventually forming a
Wow.
conical shape. If multiple rollers are used together, the metal
Wow.
can be shaped into more complex
That's
forms.
amazing.
Components like springs are often manufactured this way. The reason metal can be bent is due to plastic deformation caused by external forces. This principle is commonly applied in sheet metal bending processes. For materials that are easier to bend, simple homemade tools using the lever principle can be used to perform the bending.
Okay.
However, not all materials can be bent at room temperature. Some materials with lower ductility require heat treatment before they can be bent.
Uh-huh. Wow.
You can see a stream of concrete being poured into a freshly dug trench, with workers spreading it along the trench walls and carefully smoothing out the surface. This is the process of building a concrete drainage channel. As some workers focus on making the channel's surface as smooth as possible, others start cutting grooves into it. Why are they doing this? These grooves, called expansion joints, are commonly used in continuous concrete structures. They
Why
help
is that?
prevent cracks or damage that can occur as concrete expands and contracts with temperature changes. After
Alright.
the concrete sets, these joints are sometimes filled with waterproofing material or sealed with rubber to prevent leaks. The reason the wood doesn't break when bent into a circle, and why it can even be twisted like a braid, is that it's first steamed in a box under controlled temperature and humidity for exactly
Okay.
30 minutes. This process makes
Only
the wood
30 minutes?
flexible enough for workers to shape it. In some areas, they even use a blowtorch to heat the wood and bend it more precisely. Thanks to this flexibility, this type of wood is commonly used to make rattan furniture. Workers find key points on the frame, secure the shaped wood with screws, and then weave decorative patterns with rattan strips. Once the piece is finished, they use a grinding tool to sand
Wow,
down any
that
rough
looks
edges,
very
making the
beautiful.
surface smooth. The final step is heating the surface with a blowtorch for a polished finish. After
Yeah.
all this, the rattan chair is incredibly smooth and comfortable. Once a coat of paint is applied, the
Wow.
chair is ready to use. This sponge-like material is called rock wool. It is made from basalt, a volcanic rock formed by magma cooling into a foam-like structure. The process
Really?
starts by crushing basalt into small pieces with a crusher and heating
Wow.
it to about 2,700 degrees Fahrenheit to remelt it into magma. At high temperatures, the magma is combined with additives such as steel slag and coke. Similar to making cotton candy, the molten
Cotton
magma is
candy?
spun into fine fiber-like strands to create rock wool. The fluffy rock wool is then transported by conveyor belts to a layering machine, which swings from side to side to stack the fibers to the desired thickness. Once layered, the rock wool is compressed in a press. Afterward, it undergoes trimming and baking to solidify its structure. Finally, the cooled rock wool passes through rollers for further compression, enhancing
Okay.
its resilience and giving it the desired texture. In India, fabric scraps are rarely wasted. Instead,
Oh, really?
they are recycled to make paper. Natural fabrics
Paper?
like cotton and linen
Out
are
of
commonly used for this
fabric?
purpose. These scraps are first soaked in water with specific chemicals
Alright,
to break down
let's
the fibers
understand.
into pulp. Once softened, the pulp is finely ground to create a smooth, uniform mixture. The refined pulp is then evenly spread over a mesh frame. A cloth layer is placed over the pulp on the frame, enabling workers to lift the still wet sheet without tearing. Due to limited resources, these sheets are naturally sun-dried, taking
Okay.
1 to 2 days. Once dry, each sheet is pressed flat in a machine to smooth the surface. For a final touch, a layer of color is hand-applied to each sheet. The sheets are dried again to set the color. This meticulous process not only upcycles fabric waste, but also supports artisans, transforming scraps into beautiful, handcrafted paper, ideal for invitation letters. Normally, honeycombs or honeycomb panels don't have a thick layer of honey on the beeswax surface like the one this girl is holding. In their natural state, honey is very valuable to bees, so they seal each honey-filled cell with beeswax, keeping
Okay.
the honey inside the comb. Even with bees raised in artificial hives, this is the case. Before extracting the honey, workers have to scrape off the wax covering the surface of the comb. Once
Okay.
the wax is removed, the honey doesn't just flow out on its own. The honeycomb is placed in a centrifuge, and as the machine spins faster, the honey is flung out from the comb and collects at the bottom of a container. Finally,
Wow.
workers open the honey outlet to gather the freshly extracted honey. The mooring
Wow.
lines securing luxury cruise ships can break. That's why you'll often see 3 ropes looped around a single bollard. It's a
Okay.
backup in case one of them snaps. Experience shows that during extreme weather or emergencies, these ropes sometimes do break. Small boats, on the other hand, rarely have their inflatable locks fail, but they tend to rock more than large ships. However, small boats have more ways to manage the swaying. For example, they can use stabilizing brackets to hold the boat steady. When they're sailing, they can also deploy stabilizers, which are based on the gyroscopic principle of maintaining axis stability. Here's a comparison. Before the stabilizers are activated, it's easy to make the boat wobble, but once they're turned on, the improvement in stability is immediate. Luxury cruise ships, however, don't typically use these stabilizers running a gyroscope. That large would consume a huge amount of energy.
Okay.
Look, while this couple was
Alright.
enjoying the beautiful view of Antarctica, a cute little penguin was patiently waiting behind them to
Hello?
pass by. It seemed like the penguin was stuck in a tiny traffic jam, and as soon as the couple noticed the polite little guy, they moved out of the way, and the penguin waddled forward as if it were thanking them. Who knew penguins could be this polite? But do you think they deserve a like? Look, this guy discovered an old treasure chest in his backyard, and the excitement was unreal. As soon as he
Wow.
cracked it open, it was filled with dirt and spider web, clearly showing how old it was. He carefully brushed
Wow.
off the grime, uncovering intricate carvings on the chest that hinted at its history. Then he began carefully cleaning everything, and to his surprise, he uncovered an incredible amount of gold, silver, and other valuable
Wow,
items hidden
how is that
inside. But do you
possible?
think this is real? Look, this
No.
guy found a dirty old stuffed toy on the road and decided to take it home to clean it up and resell it. He started by sprinkling a lot of detergent and some soapy liquid on the toy, pouring different colored soaps over it, and after a lot of scrubbing, beating, and rinsing, it looked a bit cleaner. But he kept going, and finally, after 3 hours of cleaning, the toy looked as good as new. But still, he didn't even get
That
a
looks
million
new.
likes. This is the same American guy known for making the most creative things. And today, he
What?
went to Walmart and started smashing a shelf with a hammer. Then, he pulled out his signature spray paint and began painting on a random product, seemingly destroying it. He used all types of colors, even messing up his fingers in the process, but he didn't care and kept going. After adding the final touch of black paint, he revealed that the product was actually his own creation, and he had transformed a random box into an amazing piece of art. And whoever buys it will win absolutely nothing. Look, this
Wow.